Okay, thanks a lot, Gemma. Then I will begin briefly to speak about academic freedom. As you mentioned earlier, that academic freedom has two dimensions. The first one is the individual dimension. That means freedom to teach, study, to conduct academic research, and of course that could interfere with other rights, such as freedom of expression, and it's also questionable what is the extent normative content of this right. The other is, which is very important, is the institutional dimension. I mean, under institutional dimension, the self-government by the academic community. It means the self-government of the university. And according to my opinion, and I would like to underline it in my presentation, academic freedom cannot exist without the self-government by the academic community. The next point what I would like to highlight, that authoritarian regimes repress individuals and communities in important positions. And you know that for authoritarian regimes, it is very important to control academia and universities. Because as you know from the history, universities are hotbed of political protest. For instance, if you think on the Hungarian history, the latest revolution, the revolution of 1956, began at universities. Now, I would like to highlight you the case of academic freedom in Hungary. In some sense, Hungary is a land of unfulfilled promises, as it is a member state of the European Union, and Hungary has ratified almost all international human rights documents related to academic freedom. Moreover, as you know, the country is located in Eastern and Central Europe, and in this region, academic freedom has been enshrined in almost all constitutions. That means that academic freedom is not only a fundamental right in the current constitution. The name of the current constitution is Fundamental Law, and it was adopted in 2011, but it was already there in the state socialist constitution. But it is important to underline that in an authoritarian regime, it doesn't matter much what is in the constitution. Sorry for the example, but you can find academic freedom also in the North Korean constitution. It also does not matter which international documents ratified by an authoritarian country. And Gemma mentioned a lot of international convention which is mentioning the academic freedom, such as the UN Covenant on Social, Economic, and Cultural Rights. But it is important to underline that you can find academic freedom in Covenant under the umbrella of cultural rights, which is, according to the legal scholarship, one of the doctrinally less developed part of international human rights protection. And also, if we speak on this convention, we should underline that its monitoring mechanism is really weak. I think you heard about it, but academic freedom was restricted after the Hungarian authoritarian term, which was in 2011. And after this term, one of the first act of the new government was to restrict academic freedom. To mention only one example, that already in 2011, they adopted a new act on national higher education, which has significantly restricted the autonomy of the universities. I would like only mention one example, that for instance, earlier, the Senate appointed the rectors, now the Senate only suggesting the person and the ministry appointing the rector, but it was also other modifications. And they modified this law and other regulations related to higher education several times after 2011. And after that, they also, after the adoption of the Act on Higher Education, they also adopted a new constitution. As I mentioned, we call it Fundamental Law. And according to my view, this new constitution is the driving force and the normative basis of the functioning of the Hungarian regime. And one of the main features of this regime that it restricts the competencies of the formerly autonomous institutions such as the judiciaries, the constitutional court, the universities, and also they try to restrict the competencies of the NGOs. Now, I would like to highlight you the story of the restriction of academic freedom in Hungary. Of course, it will be not an objective storytelling, as an involved academics in the Hungary. And first, I would like to mention you that the external and internal resistance was relatively weak. But after that, in the second part of my presentation, I would like to highlight the elements of the existing resistance. And the aim was, my aim with this, to create a reference point for the future. Because it's based on so-called critical legal study that, according to me, it is very important to strengthen the voices of the oppressed academics in Hungary. First, about the lack of resistance, I would like to underline the importance of the socialization of human rights. As you know, human rights are not just magic words, slogans, and shallow rhetorical devices used by international documents, but these are really ideas that only can work if people, including academics, students, university professors, identify with them and ready for fight for them. And what is my main point in this in this presentation? That I think professors and students can preserve academic freedom only if they also fight not only for their personal autonomy, but also for the autonomy of their institutions. And I think that mainly the problem that we don't find for the autonomy of our institution, that the erosion of the academic freedom has been painfully swift in Hungary, and in most cases it happened without any resistance from the academic community. I would like to highlight only a few examples. One of my examples that, for instance, that in Hungary, if we focus on legal scholarship, that no one in Hungarian legal scholarship has ever been discredited for his or her administrative position in a government-controlled university. To mention one example, that as I mentioned that already in 2011, the Hungarian government restricted the autonomy of universities, and after then, the government also began to create their own universities and academic institutions. I think one of the most important step in this process was the creation of the Rudi Rojka University, and this in 2012. At this time, we called this university National University of Public Service, and it was from the creation under very close governmental control. To clarify it, that recently the person who is ultimately responsible for the decisions related to maintenance, administration, and management of this university is the political director of the Prime Minister. But yes, and this university was not fully under the Hungarian accreditation rules, but for instance, the rules for institutional accreditation was applicable for this university. And a lot of professors joined freely to this university, some for better salaries, and sometimes they had not even any teaching obligations after joining this university. And what is another important point, that, for instance, the government used a lot of EU money for building up these new universities. They created research centers with meaningful publication activities using European Union's money. My other story is that gender or family studies, that you know that after a time, the Hungarian government decided banned the gender studies master programs. We had two gender studies master programs, one in our university, at University, and the other one was in the Central European University. The government banned this gender studies program, but what is interesting that after banning gender studies master programs, you know that the government supported the so-called family studies. And it happened that the so-called Hungarian Research Center, some scholars, including gender scholars, decided that they have to create a center for family studies. And maybe they thought that they can continue to publish or teach about gender if they call the center to family studies. And for instance, they can call the research for inclusive family studies. My third example, but of course I can mention any other examples, but maybe I have no time for that. That the allocations of research funds in Hungary. In the third problem, what I can highlight is that many Hungarian scientists continue to apply for funding their socially important topics to National Research Fund, even if the fund was directly controlled by the government. Or many even avoid the ideas of abandoning an already awarded grant when the government has already effectively interfered in the allocation of research funds. Okay, now I would like to highlight you, which is I think also very important to understand the Hungarian situation, that the external constraints of the regime did not work. I would like to mention you maybe the most important case, that is the case of the Central European University. And maybe you heard about this story. And maybe the incident of this story that the Central European University for years did not show any solidarity with the troubled institutions of the Hungarian academic sphere. For instance, with our institution of ELTE. This university started to resist and at the same time negotiate to be regime compatible only when the government began to attack the university. And after a time, the European Commission initiating an infringement action against Hungary. This infringement action, the basis of this infringement action was the Lex CEU. The Lex CEU, and the problem with the Lex CEU was that it clearly infringed the rule of law. That I would like to highlight you briefly the content of this law, this Lex CEU. That according to the Lex CEU, that international private university needed an international agreement between the government of Hungary and the university's country of origin, and other foreign universities wishing to operate in Hungary would need to conduct actual educational activities in their home country. It was the US in the case of the Central European. And when this act was adopted, it was applicable only for one higher education institution, and that was the Central European University. And what I would like to highlight is that maybe you heard about it, that in 2020, the European Court of Justice ruled that Hungary reached the European Union law, but what I would like to mention here, that also a judgment which is condemned Hungary can have a regime conservative effect. That, for instance, in this case, the argument of the judgment was that Hungary violated the GATT agreement because not ensuring national treatment to the Central European University. And almost accidentally, the court dealt with the fact that Hungary has infringed the Charter of Fundamental Rights relating to academic freedom. What is the problem with this judgment? That according to one of my colleagues who wrote a blog article to the Verfassungsblog on this issue, that was István Csongor Nagy, and he argued that the Central European Union case was the EU's Al Capone tricks, because he mentioned that, you know, that if you remember the story of Al Capone was convicted for tax fraud and not for other issues, and you know, and in this case, the European Court of Justice even does not mention the rule of law issue with any words. But the problem is that in this case, this Al Capone trick didn't work, because you know that the procedure lasted for a long time. In the meantime, the Central European University moved to Vienna, gave up the original mission to provide education in higher education in Central and Eastern European Union, and also this so-called act, the Lex EU, is also recently partly in effect. That it means that nothing happened. But my problem is that the EU did not refer to its fundamental values, such as the rule of law, democracy, and did not use the full potential of European Union law to limit authoritarian regimes. And I would like to mention you one more example that is, maybe you heard about it, that is the forced model change, and maybe it was the last step of the government to restrict the autonomy of the Hungarian universities, and it happened in 2021. And we can call this forced model change the privatization of university. That it was that the government forced the majority of the universities under government control, and the painful element of this story, that in almost all cases, without the University of Theatre and Film Arts, it happened without resistance of the universities, as it means that the universities were under financial pressure, and the model change have been supported by the University Senate, and this privatization or model change means that these universities become foundations governed by boards, and it affected 21 out of the former 26 public universities, and only few universities, such as the University of Elte, remain public universities. And what is the problem with this? That the governing body of this privatized university, we called it the Board of Trustees, appointed exclusively by the government for life. It means that it's a lifelong mandate, and the boards consist mostly high-ranking Fidesz politicians and oligarchs who are supportive to the existing regime. And you know that we transferred significant competence from the Senate to the Board of the Trustees. They define the fields of the education and the method of the education. And only mention one example. That, for instance, what is the problem in the university? The case of the University of Sopron, which is a small university in the countryside, the Senate consists 50 members, of whom only 4 are elected, and also the rector is chosen and appointed by the Board of the Trustees. Okay, and what is the situation now in Hungary? There are inequalities. I mean, on the inequalities, that access to academic resources is unequal, not only in the academia between East and West, but even more between North and the global South. But inequalities also exist within the country, and in Hungary, the distribution of resources favors those who move or placed in the occupied institutions. For instance, our university, which remained a public university or state university, the PhD students, assistant lecturers, assistant professors, and also the professors' wages are very, very low. And which means that if you have no other job at the governmental controlled university or institutes, that you cannot pay not only for the linguistic proofreading of your academic paper, but it's also problematic to pay your electricity bill or dental expenses. And you know that the government knows it well that if you if you can choose that of course that it takes time away from publishing an article in a reference journal on the rule of law decline in Hungary if you are also protesting against autonomy. And what I would like to mention in the Hungarian case, the pressure from the government was in the many cases rather economic pressure. It was economic pressure on universities to give up their institutional autonomy for financial support, and of course that it was also the financial interest of academics not to resist against the restriction of the autonomy of the institutions. But now also professors who joined to the occupied universities are also losing their jobs because of their publications. But what I would like to underline in this lecture, that in my view, academic freedom can only be maintained if the institutional guarantees of self-governance of scientific and education institutions are also preserved. Now I would like to highlight in the second part of my presentation some story of the resistance. I think that, as I mentioned in the beginning, it is very important also to focus on the successful resistance and on the resistance at all. My first example is from my university, and I also participated in this protest that it happened in 2015. It was following the establishment of the chancellorship system, which increased the influence of the government over the university with the financial control. That the government deleted BA courses from the list of the BA courses, and that happened that it was a protestation which was organized by students and professors at the ELTE Faculty of Social Sciences. And you know that we organized forums, marches, and the result of the resistance was that in 2015 the government removed the Bachelor in International Studies from the list of abolished BA courses. And according to many, the original idea was that the government deleted the international studies bachelor courses, that it will be allowed only to teach these courses at this governmental controlled National University of Public Administration. My second example for collective resistance is the case of the SFR. The SFR is the acronym of the, as I mentioned, the University of Theatre and Film Arts. And it happened under the model change in 2020 that it was a real resistance. The university, that the full leadership of the university resigned and protest, and after then students at the university organized a street farewell party for the staff, and the event became a political demonstration and led to occupation of the main university building, and they occupied the building for 71 days. And Okay, of course, that and the university, the government reoccupied the university building, but in some sense, this resistance was successful in the sense that students and professors of the SFR funded an association that we call this Association for Free SFR, and this Free SFR offers courses, and in the end of the courses, in the frame of the so-called emergency exit program, they give degrees to the students, and these degrees came from foreign institutions, such as German institutions. It means that this university, in a frame of an association, stayed in Hungary and still provide courses and then degrees from foreign universities. It means that the academic community of SF as a whole, in some sense, successfully defended their autonomy. But there are also cases of individual resistance. I would like to mention only few cases here that, for instance, Ferenc Krémer, a professor, he was a professor at this so-called Ludovica University, the government-controlled university, which I mentioned earlier. And in his political writing, this Ferenc Krémer argued that Fidesz, the Orbán's party, had mafia-like structures. And after then, he was dismissed from the university, and after then, he won a number of legal cases that found that he had been sacked without proper legal reasons. But I would like to mention another example that in 2019, the 1956 Institute, which was an independent research institute for historians, was annexed to the government-controlled Veritas Institute, and after that, in a short time, all of the researchers of the institute, the former independent institute, left this government-controlled Veritas Institute, but the historian Christian Ungváry stayed for a while to find out how the government achieved a state where this governmental controlled Veritas Institute has no research that does not follow the government's memory policy. And of course, that after that, Christian Ungváry left the institute, but before leaving the institute, he wrote a paper on the state security service involvement under the state socialist era, one of the heads of the Veritas Institute. There are also other examples. I would like to mention one that in the last one, which happened in another university, Corvinus University, which also became a privatized model change university, that it happened that in 2023, Professor Ádám Zoltán started an ethics procedure and a lawsuit against 3 Corvinus University leaders. The rector of the university was one of them, because the university allegedly provided an advantage and an exam for the students whose families owns a stake in MOL company. The story is that this MOL company is very close to the government, and after the model change, the university gets some financial support, which means that they get stakes from the MOL company. And in the first instance, the investigation convicted the university rector and 2 other Corvinus leaders. However, they were acquitted in the second instance. But the second instance was composed by the board of trustees and the vice rector. What I would like to underline through these individual stories, that of course, to varying degrees, individual freedom has been preserved also in these occupied institutions, that at least that we can remain the right for academics to decide to leave the occupied institution. But what is my argument, that in the reality you can save your academic freedom only in the case if you are fighting against the autonomy of the institution and if you can preserve it somehow. Okay, and the last to give you some positive view, I would like to underline the importance of the resistance and resilience. Yes, as I mentioned that it's somehow, but I will say it's connecting to the so-called critical university studies. And I think that it is very important to hear the voices of the dissenters and to hear the voice of the oppressed groups of the Hungarian academics, because in that case, we can better understand what is going on in Hungary, and the storytelling is also another function. It could serve as an instrument for empowering the oppressed part of the Hungarian academic community. And that's why I think that it's important to explore forms of dissent, because in doing so, we create reference points for the future. And if we have these reference points, it would strengthen the capacity of the democratic resilience in a Hungarian society. Thanks a lot.
Balázs, what is your opinion about the support of civil society or society in general terms to the academic freedom, to academic class? Because when you speak about external resistance, it seems that there's a problem of the consideration by the society of this problem, this issue. For example, in Italy, it seems to me that the academic class is seen by the majority of the population as something, a class of privileged people that earns a lot of money when it's not so. And but it's something like seeing that they're not considered as a part, as important part of the society. I feel this kind of, but it's not a tragic situation. And in Hungary, you think that the society supports the academic freedom, the academic class in general, or not?
Okay, I think the issue is that one of the problems of Hungary was that according to many sociological research, the democratic part of the civil society was weak, and it was weak regarding the data of participations. Of course, that we have very strong human rights NGOs, but not so much people were able to fight for the independence of the constitutional court, for the independence of the judiciary, or for academic freedom. That we have very strong and the professional human rights NGOs, but the participation in the democratic part of the civil society is very low in Hungary. Okay. For instance, in comparison with Italy.
And the Greek Party is indifferent to this problem. This is opposite. Okay, the great part of the society that is not committed with, for example, supporting in NGOs or participation in political movements, thinks that the academic class is something that could be eliminated, could be not so useful for society, or it doesn't think anything about it.
Okay, I don't know exactly, but according to go back to the first question, that I think that I think that human rights can work only in such society when people are ready to identify with human rights and fight for them. And I think that yes, but according to some sociologists who are dealing with human rights, it's also possible to somehow strengthen the democratic resilience in the society. But for instance, if you are creating stories about the resistance, it could be serve as a reference point for those who are participating in this one.
Thank you so much. Stefano De Uberti.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a researcher from another institute of CNR, the Vulnerable Population and Social
Preferisci parlare la voce?
Okay, and it's connected to the previous question, and because you nicely described this collective form of dissent, and I was thinking similar, so I was wondering if in adopting this situation, the attempt to raise the attention within the university on the lack of academic freedom translate and go beyond the university. So it was able to reach the public sphere somehow to raise the attention also outside the university and send a sense to the public society and so to lead to raise the attention and speak on the that there are human rights issues within also the academia, and that actually perhaps the other way around. If this, for example, in this example, even representative that was not belonging necessarily to academic sphere start to be involved in this form of dissent. And that sense, I think, is related to what you were saying, that this kind of action could become a reference point for the future and becomes even stronger reference point if it's able to gather people also beyond the academia, but within the society.
Yeah, but I see your point, but it happens sometimes. But you know that, for instance, in the Central Europe, the case of the Central European University, a lot of people in the street of Budapest protested for academic freedom, and it was connected with other issue. But it also happened in the case of the Zeszékely University when the students choose a more radical form of the dissent earlier, and they occupy the university building. And also earlier that it happened that we had this so-called Haha movement, that this Haha movement was the main movement of the student resistance, and they, after a time, they were not involved only in the issue of academic freedom, but they also organized other protestations. For instance, some of them were involved and they occupied the Fidesz headquarters, which was a protest, yes, it's happening sometimes, but the problem that, yes, that not so many people participated in this resistance. But it's happening that not only that they are not focusing only on academic freedom, but it's connected also with other issues.
Thank you so much, Balázs. I have one question concerning this government do something to improve the access to education of young people, of students? My question is, what is doing on the side of sustaining, even from an economic point of view, people to have access to higher education, so to universities and post university studies, because my question is if they just want to control in a way politically the universities and research bodies, or if they and they want to support education in general of the Hungarian people, or there is a wider framework of not sustaining people in having access, and always it is also an issue, an economic issue and financial issue, no?
Yes, I think that yes, it's a complicated story, but as I mentioned, that the first restriction of academic freedom happened when they adopted a new act on higher education, which was before the adoption of the new constitution in 2011, and in the following year, in 2012, the government restricted the funds of the universities, and it means that it was earlier normative finance of the university, and it restricted. It means that less students received less students had free access to the higher education. But after that, that was the first that they cut the money. But after that, when they occupied somehow the universities, they put back money in the system. But now this finance is partly, it is not on a normative basis, that it's not depend only on the number of the students, but the government gives back money for the universities for projects. And it means that if you have better relationship with the government, you can get more money. But it's not that it's earlier the size of the fund was related to how many students do we have in the universities. And the first step they cut the financing, and then they put back money, but I think the huge part of the money is going for projects.
Difficult to understand.
Yeah, but in the first step, they cutting the finance, and after then, less students from the poorest part of the Hungary get access to the higher education. But the situation changed a little.
Okay, so improving in a way.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you told me that Budapest is the main center for university, so people coming from the countryside have to sustain more expenses to have access to university now, because they have to live in Budapest. They have to change their.
Yes, but now there is also a little more money in the higher education, but it was cut in the 2012. And what I would like to mention, that most of the resilience happened in Budapest. There is only a few stories from the countryside. For instance, it happened once that a university professor participated in Debrecen, which is the biggest city in the eastern part of Hungary, in a protest that it was against the law on the Central European University, and he gave a speech, and after then the university told him that he will never be an associate professor. After that, he left the university, but we have only. There is less participation in the countryside, and we have only few stories on the resistance from the countryside.
But this aspect is by sure one of the interesting ones to be explored, because if you have some freedom to you as a state, if a state member, so we are talking about a European member state. So if you have obligations to provide for the exercise of the right to education, so you should have some obligation of building up universities even all around Hungary. And you know what I mean? I mean there should be something that a state has to do. So building new universities to give and recognize the right to education to all people. Otherwise, this is a very difficult situation for Hungary, and very typical for you, because in Italy, for example, we have a lot of universities all around the country. So people are not obliged to leave their own country or their own village, because they can find universities very close to them. But
but we have also a lot of universities in the countryside, but all of them are already, I think, all of them are privatized in that sense that they are under governmental control. And for instance, as I mentioned, the first period, the government spent a lot of EU money for restricting the autonomy of the formerly independent universities, and because they spent EU money for the newly created universities, that for instance for this National University for Public Service, and they use a lot of money for EU money for creating research centers, for the salaries of the professors and so on. But it's also true what happened in the last year, that the European Commission, that the EU got the Erasmus funds from the privatized universities.
thank you so much. Any other question? To go back to Madani? Okay, so we can. Anna, do you have any question?
Dear colleague, I have maybe one question, because my situation is very particular. You know that I'm a representative of Mariupol University, and my university is a Ukrainian university that is temporarily relocated in Kiev. But at the same time, we have another university as like a clone of our university in Mariupol on the occupied territory. And speaking about the concept of academic freedom, I would like to know your opinion, because there are some professors and some academicians that continue living in Mariupol and working at Mariupol University, situated in Mariupol. And we consider them as collaborators and those who betrayed, yes, our university and collaborate with enemies. But in the concept of academic freedom, those people, where is the level of collaboration or academic freedom for them? Maybe you could explain your position. What do you think about it, about academic freedom and collaboration on the occupied territory?
Very difficult question.
Okay, but for me, that if I understood well the question, then the question is that what is the situation who are collaborating with in the occupied territory with the
question is, continue working in Mariupol. They express their academic freedom, or they collaborate with enemies. So it's about our future too, how to go on after the victory and how to go on after returning back to Mariupol.
If I just can say something about this, here in the context of Mariupol, we already have a compression of many freedoms. So because of the war, so because of the imposition of a different legal system by an occupied entity. So we are in a different context where the academic freedom has already been compressed in a way, but maybe we can even ask to our international lawyers colleagues here in the to say what they I mean one question to you, Anna. Do you have any information from those colleagues that that decided to stay and to collaborate with Russia? That they are putting the accent, or they are on their academic freedom? Do you have any news about it?
Of their personal freedom, saying that it's their personal decision to do it. But there is another context. It's not only about personal freedom, it's also about how to say, it's also about some public level. So they communicate with people, they teach people, and they are dependent on the authorities. This is the problem. So I think that it's not very simple question, unfortunately. Maybe it's not regarding the topic of academic freedom you are talking now, but as an argument, it's very interesting, and also for the future, what to do then and after the war.
Okay, but I think that, of course, that in dictatorships, the academic freedom is strictly restricted. And I think there are dictatorships in which, in some sense, you cannot speak on academic freedom. Okay, that there is, for instance, research about that whether you can speak on academic freedom in China. But yeah, but it's another question. That's what you have done after the regime change. You have done. Okay, but maybe also in dictatorship there are some resistance to support academic freedom.
Eugenio Zaniboni is intervening.
Thank you.
From University of Foggia.
Can she listen?
Yes. Do you hear from the room?
Let's try.
Let's try.
Sorry, I should apologize because probably 80% of the presentation online is really very good and abolish my training. But I was stuck in a way because I had a chance to listen to this presentation on the spot of my Foggia. So for me it was very interesting.
Just one moment. Anna, could you mute yourself just one moment, because we thank you.
Thank you, Gemma. I would say that was very interesting also into listen your introduction to the issues of today. So now, if I can add some elements to the really interesting questions raised by Anna. I will compare this situation of Mariupol.
Just to say that Anna Trifonova has been one of our research fellow and is a professor of Italian, yes, in
Social communication.
okay, social communication in the faculty of Maripol. Just to okay, thank you, Anna.
I would like to add some, elements in order to, better frame these sensitive issues, as she said. And these elements could be one comparing the situations now in Mariupol, for example, with the situations of occupied Palestine and the university in Palestine. Of course, it's not the same question because in Palestine there is a very strong resistance against the Israeli government because they are day by day deprived of their freedom, deprived of the means. They don't have a lab. They don't. Sometimes every year at the beginning of the academic year, they close the gates from one side to another, which is provoking long lines. Okay, so in this case, there is a strong resistance against the occupying power, and they like to, and they are 100% depending on what the government or the occupying government can leave them in terms of means, labs, freedoms, books, financing, and so on. On the other side of the coin, we have a kind of a cultural closeship, you say, friendship of the Russian population in Ukraine. I mean, they have, if I'm not wrong, they have Russian roots. So they, according to what we can read on the papers, they feel themselves more close to Russia than Ukrainian. So in this case, it can be compared not to occupying maybe powers, but on a secessionist movement, with according to which, if I'm not wrong, of course, maybe I'm, somebody can add other elements for this discussion, because they are not fighting against the occupying power, but anyway, they are feeling that they are culturally speaking close to this occupying power. So this is a very sensitive issue because if I'm not wrong, this was the position of Hannah when she said that they could choose to stay there or not, but not in terms of stay there as a resistance against an enemy, if I'm not wrong. So they are staying there in terms of, as she said, collaboration. So this is very sensitive because. As she said, so she was touching a very sensitive point, a very interesting point from the legal point of view. Until which point we can speak of academic freedom and the border with collaboration with the enemy. So it's an attempt of a secession on cultural basis or what? So we should ask ourselves, the right frame of these issues in international law, in legal terms, international law terms, human rights terms, and not last but not least in terms of exercising academic freedom, because you cannot compel the academic freedom even of the professor in general terms of universities that are under the jurisdiction of the occupying power. You know what? So I don't know if
thank you, Eugenio. I agree with you when you say that we are in a completely different context when we are talking about Ukraine now, because we are in a war situation, first of all. So, as I was mentioning, all the rights that are inherent to a democracy are not available, not anymore applicable to that part, that country, and academic freedom is one of them. We said that is inherent to a democratic system, so we can discuss about how it is going to be compressed. So we can discuss about risks. But in that situation of Ukraine, we are in a completely different context. But one point that I think is very interesting, that is rising from the question, the very difficult question of Anna, but also we perfectly understand your emotions in this question, is the fact that if you are advocating, you as an independent member of the academia, wherever you are, and if you are claiming and advocating for academic freedom and for being respected for this, you also have a responsibility. So you have not only freedom to be guaranteed, but also the responsibility of your action, of your activity towards the students, toward the people, because you are the one who is protecting the independence of the intellectual component of a society. So this is, or maybe what Anna wanted also to say, that they decided to collaborate, accepting the Russian occupation and accepting to continue to teach in the exact the same way. I mean, they are as nothing changed. No, they decided to continue. This was also a responsibility toward the students. So maybe we could have expected from them to be more resistant in favor of improving discussion, improving democracy, or but we also understand people that are in a place of war and cannot maybe leave from there. So it's anyway very difficult. But I don't know, what do you think about the aspect of responsibility?
I think
Yeah.
I think that is Anna's main point, no? The how to play the public role of academician in that context, no? Because the public role means that you can do as anything is happening, and so probably you are violating your academic freedom by yourself.
Yeah, but I would like to add only one thing, that I think that it's very difficult to compare it with the Hungarian situation, because you know that in the occupied territory of Russia, but also in the territory of Russia, it's very difficult to compare, because in Hungary we have no physical violence. You know that what we have is the financial pressure, and maybe also some other, but no physical violence. I think it's very difficult to compare the two situations, and you know, and you can also argue that in the full-fledged dictatorship there are no academic freedom anymore. You know that, of course, that some sense it could remain in some circles, for instance in Hungary, the end of the still socialist periods, it was so-called Monday-free university. It means that intellectuals are organized lectures in private flats. But yes, but I think that the Hungarian situation is very different from the situation in the occupied territories.
So thank you. If there are no other questions, I thank again Professor Meiteni and thank you all, and also announce that in the next month, and I promise, we will have a conference with the participation in presence of Anna Trifonova that we had to do at the end of September, but we decided, and we had to decide to postpone it. But we will have the opportunity to talk again about the Ukrainian situation and with the presence of Anna Trifonova. So maybe we can even involve, if Stefano is, and we can even involve the scholar at risk. And would you like to say something? Sorry, I forgot this about this project.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So please, I leave the floor here. I leave the seat and you can. Due parole.
Okay, thanks a lot also because this is not organized meeting, and thanks to the director. Easy. Actually, my name is Stefano De Giuberti. I'm, as I said, a colleague in another institute of CNR, and actually, it happened by chance that we interchange ideas together during the last few days, because during the last couple of years, CNR, with some colleague of the International Relations Office of CNR, we advocate for the participation of CNR to this network that is called Scholar at Risk. And so just one month ago, we actually, CNR, take part to this network. And what is this network? Actually, it's a network of institutions, academic institutions, universities, but also institutes that advocate for the protection of academic freedom, but also the protection of social and professional life of scholars in context of conflict, but or where actually academia is at some obstacle. And this network actually started in 1999 in the United States at the University of Chicago, and 4 years ago, actually, also the Italian network was created, and it started from the University of Trento and Padova, and after now there are almost 40 universities and institutions that belongs to this network. And very briefly, the main activities that the networks carry out are, as I said, protection. There's the advocacy activities, so lobbying within the institution of the nation, or through involving also other intellectuals, artists, to organize and to raise the attention of this issue. And then the other aspect is actually what we are doing today, is organizing seminars, conference activities that relate to this topic, to discuss on this. And so in that sense, we were discussing also with Virginia Kudanut-Santer, is actually the reference for this net. It is the responsible with me for CNR to think if it could be a possibility to organize a day to present more widely this initiative, because, and the idea is actually is that of course as I see, and the institution, the different universities are already working on this issue and are trying to collecting fund and organizing scholarship. But sometimes the difficulties is to keep guarantee continuities to the scholars that, for example, are hosted. And so in that sense, try to create more synergy, because the institution that work on these issues could be a possibility to actually guarantee the continuities to the scholar, perhaps moving from one institution to another, or organizing also opportunities of teaching in another within the institution I member. And so this is so I'm very pleased actually to be here to try to make it known, because it's really as a CNR we just joined 1 month ago, and in the next stage there will be annual meeting of the Italian network, where, and that's perhaps it could be interesting for all. There is the network decided to organize a kind of course, a formation course of 4 days of 8 hours. It's 4 days between November and December, where actually they are explaining, they are touching different topics, from visa issue, how to ask the person, and so different aspects to provide information and to how actually practically also these things work. And it's free, and everyone could join this course through a link. You just have to register, and actually the main thing is that the idea is not just for academics or scholars, but also from all the other administrative person that works, because as we say, actually the issue of academic freedom is not related also to who did research, but also to who works in academia. And so in that sense, also on the other way around, the course is thought also for people that actually, if someone is also should support the person. And so it's not just the researcher, but also the administratives and also